Sitting comfortably, then I'll begin.
Very comfortably, thank you.
Sorry?
Very comfortably, thank you.
Very good. Just so that everybody knows, at ACC Full Council this morning, you could tell it was Christmas because there were people there in Christmas ties, Christmas jumpers, and we even had a Christmas poem in the middle of proceedings from one of the Labour councillors. So no pressure.
Do you want us to sing a carol?
No, we'll be fine. I wasn't saying, I was just, yeah, that's been our day today, me and you carry things with you, don't you? So welcome to Cabinet, 10th of December, and so let's do the formal bits to start off with. Do we agree the minutes and the decisions from the previous meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed. Are there any apologies for absence? Not on the Cabinet side. And I think we're all good.
Yeah, Claire's not here, but
I'm deputy.
Any declarations of interest?
I'm a trustee of Community Action Decorum, which is one of the agenda items included in one of the
Mayoral services arrangements. Okay. Item 4, public participation. There is none. Item 5, referrals to Cabinet. Or is that item 5 or 6? Looks like 6 in the outline. No, sorry, no, 5 referrals to Cabinet. There are no referrals to Cabinet. Are there any amendments to the Cabinet forward plan? No. Good. Okay, so coming to the first substantive item, which is the Treasury Management 2024-25 mid-year performance report. That one, Councillor Allen.
I will, as usual, defer to the specialist in the room.
So in front of you is the statutory mid-year report for Treasury Management that has been to audit committee already. I won't go through the report in detail, but in terms of Cabinet for some headlines, as the report outlines, there are some wider economic turns that have been seen in the first 6 months of this year, with inflation down on what it was last year, interest rates starting to reduce, and again, wage growth starting to reduce as well. So it would seem that from a Treasury perspective, the economic side of it potentially starting to take a turn in a different direction. But let's keep to the positives. The first half of the year, we saw an average rate of return of 5.14%, which is higher than current interest rates, and is 0.5% up on the performance of the first 6 months of last year. So strong first half year performance. I suspect a stronger second half year performance than we expected because the Treasury advisors are talking about reducing the decreases to interest rates that they've been projecting for this year, given a few economic bumps that are expected over the next few months. But strong performance overall, and hopefully strong performance by year end, leading into 25-26.
Okay. And just a quick clarification from me. One of our recommendations is to not include balances held in the reserve account as part of investment balances in the short term. So, I mean, that's obviously a decision about what we do with the money that comes from this kind of overperformance or underperformance. Even to me, a non-financially trained person, it doesn't seem particularly sensible to immediately spend all the upside, because then you would have to do the same on the downside.
Yeah, and we'll have a revised Treasury Management strategy for 25-26, which will form part of the budget pack as well. So again, we can make any future changes as we see fit on that front.
Right. Are there any other questions or comments on this item? No. In that case, our recommendation is Cabinet recommends to Council acceptance of the 2024-25 Treasury Management Performance Report And Cabinet recommends to Council to not include balances held in the reserve account as part of investment balances in the short term. Agreed? Thank you. Okay. So moving on to item 8, which is the Solar Together Hertfordshire round 3, and Councillor Smith-White.
Yes. So I'm pleased to present the proposal for the third round of Solar Together Hertfordshire, which has been discussed and debated at scrutiny, and it is an initiative central to our response to the climate and ecological emergency. So I seek your approval to progress with this impactful scheme. And Aidan, would you like to take over?
Happy to, Councillor. This is something that's been going on for a few years, so we're about to enter the third round of it, subject to Cabinet approval. We are the lead authority for Hertfordshire, and so far in the 2 cohorts within the auspices of this contract, we have had decent success in take-up across Hertfordshire and indeed in, obviously, within decorum. So if Cabinet is minded to approve, we are ready within the climate and emergency team to lead on this and launch the third cohort in 2025.
Any other comments? I've got one.
Yeah, I just wondered with so there's a £40,000 cash injection for a mail shot to all homes. So there's 8 out of 10 councils doing this. Are all the others doing a similar mail shot as well?
So the mail shot will be across the entirety of Hertfordshire.
Oh, right.
So the benefits of this approach is that it jointly between iChooser, the company, and the local authority branding, iChooser believe that will get some sort of traction with residents. Each local authority is signed up to us all mail shotting those residences that fit the right profile to be able to take on solar panelling, and that is then kind of on the back of that. If residents are so interested, then they will contact the company and progress will be made. And the evidence so far in the previous 2 cohorts is that the return to the authority exceeds that initial investment required to undertake the mail shot, so it effectively washes its face.
Yeah. And also from what I've seen, obviously some credit to Andrew and his administration, because when Hemel Garden Communities started to administrate this, it was under him, and there's that combined benefit of, yes, it washes its face and it covers that cost, or certainly did cover that cost right at the beginning. Each time we do it, we learn a bit more about where the market is and how things are changing. But also, some people who would not have put panels on their roof end up putting panels on their roof because they wouldn't have necessarily the commercial confidence to do that themselves, but with the backing of with the councils being involved in that as well, it gives some confidence to people who otherwise might not use their money to do something that's very much in line with the corporate plan and the goals that we've got. So if there are no other questions or comments, the recommendations are that Cabinet approves progression with the third round of Solar Together Hertfordshire bulk buy scheme in the current contract with iChooser. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Mark, I'm not sure when's the best time to take the council tax?
It really doesn't matter, to be honest. So do you want to do it at the end? Or?
Do it at the end.
Yeah.
So item 9 is the strategic risk register for Q2 of 2024-25, and that's Councillor Owen.
I think it makes it more appropriate that it's introduced by Nigel.
The strategic risk register, as it says on the tin really, Q2 update in terms of the risks. There are no change to the risk scores in Q1, Q2 of this year. This has been to audit committee lively discussion, but no significant challenge or changes to the risk scores that are outlined there. What I would remind this group is early in the next calendar year, you're going to see invitations pop into your calendar for the start of a review of our strategic risks in light of the revised corporate plan to make sure that we have appropriate strategic risk linked to that corporate plan agenda. And that'll start in January, hopefully for approval in this financial year so that we can reset the strategic risk going forward.
And as everybody will know, there's been a discussion about the climate issues with storms in Wales and so on, and I believe that falls within the resilience risk approach elsewhere that Aidan's got in hand.
Yeah, in terms of risks, you're right, it does fall under resilience, and it's something that we monitor in terms of the CEE programme, in terms of changes due to climate change, etc., and the impacts of those, because they are quite wide-ranging.
Yeah, well, I saw some Hertfordshire figures on flooding and tree falls in between 6th and the 8th, and particularly on the tree falls, the heat spot sits right over Hempstead, basically, for the whole of Hertfordshire. So that was quite an image. If there aren't any other comments, then we'll move on.
I'm reading the recommendation. It doesn't make sense in the context of this where we are.
Okay, I was just coming to that and about to read it out. To provide comments and feedback on the report for consideration by Cabinet when they review. Yeah, that clearly looks...
You should say Council.
Right, it's just the exchange of the words Cabinet and Council. Okay.
Is it?
I don't think it is. It looks as if that's the recommendation to scrutiny.
It's the one that went to audit committee.
Sorry, audit.
Yeah, to endorse the Q2 strategic risk report I've seen.
Okay, so the recommendation we have is to endorse the Q2 strategic risk register report for 2024-25. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Can we come to you for proofreading? Right. Good. Item 10, tenancy agreement review. And that's Councillor Dean.
Thank you. I'll do a little brief, but because I can see there's two talented people sitting over there who can talk maybe more in details, but this is basically a tenancy agreement review where there are some changes proposed. I think based on the changes, if I count the major, about 10 changes, and this is a stage where it's going to come back to Cabinet once again after having a tenant consultation. So the changes we're proposing will also be in front of our tenants to know or feed us back if they're happy with those. If they're not, we would know. We've had a very good scrutiny on that, and most members felt very comfortable with the changes. I think these changes outline more clarity, in my view, that the things tenants need to know, things we do want to make a point on in terms of clarity, in terms of how people deal with their tenancy, sometimes how people deal with their fly tips. And I think I would pass it to Ryan there to take on if you would like to share any further information. But yeah, I fully support that we should progress at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it's been over 10 years since the tenancy agreement, the secure tenancy agreement has been thoroughly reviewed. So this marks an exciting opportunity to really go through that with a fine-tooth comb. It's been through quite a robust internal review so far with heads of services and service managers. We've also now sent this off for external counsel review as well. So at this point, we're just bringing it to you to demonstrate the process that we've undertaken so far and seek your agreement to proceed to the formal consultation in the early new year with a revised set of tenancy conditions for our tenants that are hopefully clearer and more robust.
Yeah, any other comments? Certainly from my point of view, it seems like 10 years is a good round number for doing lots of things, but certainly reviewing tenancy agreement is one of those. And I really get the idea of being a bit more express about rights and responsibilities, and I think that fits right in with our corporate plan idea of empowerment and feeling that you have a bit of agency, and that can't really come without a little bit of expectation alongside. So it's good to have that set out.
Can I just say something more? So, and moving forward, we are reviewing every 5 years. Is that right? It says on the document as well.
That's something we can look to do.
Okay, it says the subject to any major legislative changes, review will take place every 5 years.
Yes, yeah.
So,
We'll have that bench periodically marked out to check with our legal services team.
Okay, so checking the recommendation very, very carefully. The Cabinet agrees the summary of proposed changes as set out in Section 2 and detailed in Appendix 1, which is Appendix 1 being the whole thing, and agrees to proceed to formal tenant consultation. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 11, which is the report, the mayoral service. And this is in my name as leader of the council, and it relates to the way that the mayor service operates in three particular ways. But I'm not going to do the job here. Who am I handing on to here?
I think it's me, Chair. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is really an overview of the current mayoral service. Probably the main change proposed in here to note is the proposal for the Mayor's Future Fund, which we believe is an excellent opportunity that we're putting forward to try and increase fundraising and also the profile of the Mayor in the community. So the details really set out in the report, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions anybody's got.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I think we were aware that the council's ability to kind of put something underneath the mayor was becoming squeezed, like lots of things for the council, and the voluntary sector, I think, were also flagging up to various of us that they felt that they could work with the mayor more productively in a slightly different way, and there's definitely an opportunity to bring in some of the smaller charities which definitely wouldn't be capable of being in that role as a mayor's charity. And that's not to say that there can't be a mayor's charity and that the mayor can't naturally have a closer relationship with a charity that they've had a long association with. All mayors are very different, one from another, and some mayors are heavily involved in fundraising, and for that reason would tend to have a ready relationship that they would want to bring more into this. And I don't think that's not prevented by these changes. So this is more of a widening of scope and creating a bit of architecture whereby, number one, more people can be involved, but also the mayor can be better supported. And I know that there's some other efficiencies in there in relation to the car, for example. You know, most cars spend all their time, almost all their time parked. So I think it's a really good thing that we're using that car for more than just ferrying the mayor around. And similarly, it's, you know, the ceremonial side of things. I know we've looked at some of that, but the key parts of that can still be retained. But and that's symbolic of the whole thing, that we're keeping all the best bits of the mayoral service, but we're just widening out the access for the community to engage with it. So, are there any other comments on the mayoral service? No? In that case, the recommendation is the Cabinet notes the overview of the Mayor's support service as highlighted in the report, agrees the development of a Mayor's Future Fund working in conjunction with Community Action Decorum as set out in section 4, and delegates authority to the Assistant Director, Legal and Democratic Services, in consultation with the Leader of the Council, to finalise the service level agreement to oversee the operation of the Mayor's Future Fund. And 3, to note the mayoral events programme as set out in section 5.4. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And now I don't see an item 12, so I'm going to item 13, which is the total asset management contract.
Chair, we just need to formally move into part 2 for that. I think that's the item 12, but
Shall we, in that case, shall
agreement.
we do the council tax bit before we do that?
We can do that, yeah.
So the council tax notice for the year. Nigel, I guess you're going to introduce that.
Yeah, so for the benefit of Cabinet, and particularly new Cabinet members, annually we need to set what is called our council tax base. It's a statutory requirement. And the reason for the late report, even though it was on future forward plans, it would be a late report, is that needs to be calculated based on data as of the 30th of November, which was last Saturday. And it takes a little bit of time to crunch a few numbers after that. In terms of what this report is after, it hopefully is clearly outlined, but it's looking to set the council tax base for 25/6. That's the number of average homes, Band D equivalent, that we'll be looking to set as the basis for our council tax income collection. So it's looking at how many properties we have at the moment, how much they pay, and then averaging it out all over a council, an average Band D position. It takes into consideration council tax support and growth in terms of new homes that are coming on board. The second aspect of this report is around updating members on the council tax support policy for 25/26, in which there are no changes. We do have delegated approval for that decision, and it is delegated every year, but as we're doing this report, for openness and transparency, we put it into the Cabinet report as well. Thirdly, the government this year announced changes to council tax to allow us to do additional charging for unoccupied homes, empty homes or second homes, which we've decided to take that option up from the 1st of April 2026. A, because the statute says we have to give a year's notice, and B, because then it allows people to plan if they want to try to avoid some of these surcharges for their empty homes or their second homes. So again, it's working for the residents. And the fourth aspect of this report is, again, another statutory element is around putting out the estimate of our collection fund surplus or deficit for 24/25, which informs our preceptors, Herts County Council, PCC and ourselves, of whether there's a shortfall in what we expected to achieve in 24/25. Just to unpick a couple of those items, which are very much worth discussion. In terms of the council tax surplus for 24/25, we are projecting a surplus, which is what we projected at the start of the year, a smaller surplus than what we previously had anticipated. So that's effectively a greater amount than what we think we would collect, the council tax base times council tax. We just thought we'd achieve slightly higher, and we projected that. That has a very limited impact on Decorum, about 25,000, which on a circa £15 million council tax income is pretty good. I'm pretty happy in terms of where our estimates fell for that. But that reduced surplus, what that showed us is we have had a reduction in our council tax base growth in 24/25, which is not unusual. Sector-wide, Hertfordshire-wide are seeing exactly the same thing. Why are we seeing that reduction? Well, first of all, the economic impact of building and developing properties. And from that perspective, it's far harder to make it financially sustainable. So we've seen developments that we expected to be concluded to either not conclude in part, or be delayed in terms of development. So we've seen less growth throughout the year. Secondly, a lot of our growth has been around affordable homes, or smaller low-key flats. So again, when we're looking at band D equivalent, they're falling in band A, B, C, and some of the affordable ones are increasing the amount of council tax support that people are able to benefit from. So again, reducing how much we get on average. So those are the kind of two key areas that are impacting on that council tax base. I'll pick one of those up in slightly more detail, and that's around council tax support. We're not seeing a huge increase in council tax support. What we're seeing is those that are able to claim are now able to claim through protected characteristics, so things like disabilities, which means they go from paying 25% council tax to none. And so although that number hasn't increased, the impact on how much we collect has. And all those have led to a reduction in what we're projecting for our council tax base for 25-26. We normally look at about a 1% increase. This year, we had modelled a 1.6% increase in 24/5, so the reduction is significant, but one that with the surplus we've got at the moment, we're still crunching some numbers, and we'll come back as part of the final budget report for 5-6. It will have a financial impact, but it's likely to be limited, particularly as there's probably going to be additional support through the settlement around council tax and the impact of that. So that outlines the report and hopefully gives a little bit more of a detail of that. Apologies for the notice. It happens every year in terms of how this has to be done from a statute perspective, but it is more around the technicalities more than anything else, but very much open to questions.
Any questions? I just have one question, which is when there is a shift in our council tax base along the lines that you described or other lines, and that then results in the council either getting more income or less income, is that a thing where we take the rough with the smooth, or if that move is big enough, do we raise a question to say there's a structural change happening here and can we have some help, please?
So part of that will be the devil is in the detail. They're strategies that we can formulate as part of our MTFS. What we will look at when we're developing over the next 6 months the MTFS in the medium term is what we think will happen with council tax base over the next 2, 3, 4 years. I know I've alluded to some of the reasons why we've had a difficult period. We've also had political unease, and in terms of political strategy, there's very much a lack of oversight at the moment in terms of where the government is going. Hopefully we'll get more over the next few months, which may improve developments, improve that kind of likelihood or not. If not, as the MTFS, we can look at how we balance that. We could do it, flexing it, if we think that year 2 and year 3 is going to be huge growth, because we know of a massive development. So for instance, if North and East Hemel, as part of Hemel Garden Communities, was coming online in 3 years, but we thought our council tax base was going to be fairly flat over the next 3 years, we might look to smooth over a 5-year period in terms of where we go. So we don't have massive ups and downs in terms of our revenue side of it. But we need to have that security and we need to have that strategy in place. And we also need to publicise that as part of the MTFS. At the moment, we've been factoring a 1% growth on the basis that, barring 2 years in COVID, over the last 7 years, we've increased on average by 1.1% a year. So we've seen that. If there is a slight fluctuation, we can do 1 year to the next. Last year was a higher increase, this year a lower increase. It kind of levels out. That's that surplus I'm talking about. But if it is going to continue, then we will have to forecast less funding going forward from council tax, and that will have an impact on our savings requirement.
Okay, Simi?
I just want to make sure that we're agreeing the tax base and we're agreeing the deficit for 31st March 2025, but we would have option to discuss the option 2 and 3, which is the increased charges for unoccupied properties and about the tax support scheme changes. Is that something we're agreeing how it's outlined in the document?
So this is asking Cabinet to recommend to Council agreement for the unoccupied and the second home charging, which is something that we've discussed with Cabinet colleagues this year. It's something that Cabinet have approved to take forward. So at this point, we are making that as part of our policy. It is going to roll out in April 2026. So if in the next 12 months there was a change of heart or change of government policy, this is something that you could look to change if you wanted to. But at this point in time, we are planning for that April 2026 rollout.
Thank you.
Okay, is it necessary to read out all of those recommendations?
It is not, Chair, no. We can just take those. If
I have checked the recommendations, they are accurate.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least if they have to be proofread, in that case, no problem. We agree the recommendations as set out in the report. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right. Going back to the other screen, and now going to number 13, we need to move into part 2 to talk about this entire item.
Yeah, just check with colleagues that we're happy to move into part 2. Sure, yeah.
Are we happy to move into part 2?
Yeah.
Yes.